evening, fellow Toastmaster and valuable guests. My name is Faisal. I would like to begin my talk by asking you these following questions. How many of you here have ever been traveling using airplanes? Any raise of hands? Okay, 1, 2. You're from Mako, so you have been traveling. Okay, okay, most of us. For those who raised your hand, how many of you did actually enjoy the airplane food, if you ever tried? You enjoyed. Okay. Myself, I don't. So, as a person who travel a lot by the airplanes, especially during the summer break, whenever I go back to Indonesia, I'm a type of person who always hop on trying different airline companies the whole times. Interestingly enough, even though I choose different types of airplanes every single times, however, I always find the airplane food as tasteless, soggy, and unappetizing. That's my opinion. Maybe it's because I choose budget airlines. So I asked this question to one of my fellow who used to work in the food processing for the airlines in Singapore. He replied my questions by saying that basically the airline food were processed on ground, and they were processed according to the standard procedures given by the airline company. So they have their own procedures in preparing the food, which means they were cooked under normal air pressure and normal room temperature. So they were cooked normally, just like how we cook in the kitchens, right? But then this answer doesn't satisfy my questions or my curiosity. So I began to make some search online, and I found out this intriguingly scientific answer or arguments given by some of the food scientists from the Fraunhofer Institute, a research-based institute in Germany. So basically, according to these food scientists, they argue that how we perceive and how we taste the food is basically controlled or influenced by 4 factors. The first is the humidity. The second is the air pressure. The third is the sense of hearing. And the last is the sense of smelling. So for the humidity, for example, do you know that the comfortable humidity level of human is around 40 to 70%, whereas when we are in plane, the humidity level drops to 20% or even lower, which means this humidity level is even lower than most of the deserts in the world. On top of that, in the cabin, the air pressure is being lower than normal. And the idea of having this is to maintain our ability to breathe. Otherwise, we won't be able to breathe properly. However, at the same time, this level of air pressure is equals to the air pressure as if you were hiking to the top of 2,500 meters of a mountain. So it's a pretty high mountain. So the combinations of the dry and the low air pressure will gives you a phenomenon called as the xerostomia. So xerostomia is basically known as cotton mouth. What is it? It is a physical phenomenon that it is very natural to happen in human, where our mouth does not able to produce adequate amount of saliva. So what happens is when our mouth cannot produce a significant amount of saliva, it will reduce our ability to taste properly, and it will reduce the ability down to 30%, especially for salty and sweet flavor. Now, on top of that, not only that our mouth gets dry, but also our nose gets dry too. So what happened is we couldn't smell, we couldn't taste by our nose the odors of the food. Now, oddly enough, according to the research, the sense of hearing also played some influence on our tasting. So, for example, some of the research says that for people who taste, or for people who have dinner in a noisy environment, they will rate their food as less salty and less sweet, compared to them who have their dinner in a silent environment. So these scientists, they come up with some idea that maybe it has to do with one of the nerves in a human's body. It's called the chondral tympani. It is basically nerves that runs from the front of your tongue to the middle part of your ears. And what happens is, when you have a noisy environment, it will influence the taste buds of your body. So that is why you will feel discomfort, and you will feel the taste is different. And don't forget, when you are in airplanes, you are having these humming jet engines together with, not to mention, the crying babies, the cranky kids, the chatty neighbors, the rattling noises from the drink carts. So that will induce the disturbance of your having the ability to test the flavor of your food. So how do we handle this? How do we tackle this? So basically, we cannot do anything because you get what you pay. So that's it. However, you can increase or enhance the quality or the taste of the flavor by simply adding more salt or sugar manually. But the problem is that by adding more sugar or salt may overpower the original ingredient's flavor. So maybe it won't taste that good either. Interestingly enough, some researchers have found that some of the flavor may have strengthened or even induced to a good level, such as tomato juice. So when you have tomato juice in the airplanes, it will taste less sour, less acidic, fruitier, and also cooler. So this leads to the company or to the scientists to believe that the savory taste, the sour taste of food is enhanced when you are in a dry, when you are in a noisy environment, as well in the low air pressure conditions. So now, whenever you are taking planes, whenever they are offering you the food tray, don't forget to first order a glass of tomato juice or Bloody Mary if you like, just to basically wash down your appetite before you eat. So that's it. Toastmaster of the evening.
Hello everyone.
Hello.
It's a pleasure to evaluate Faisal's talk about Mile High Meals. I remember your opening because from here you started to interact with the public, and this made me be more alert to your speech because you were like asking, and I was like, what he's talking about, what? So I'll remember that. And I like how you introduce a noun and pleasure topic like traveling, and then integrate it with scientific facts. And you ended strongly by giving us some recommendations for our next flights, which is so kind of you. And I have some recommendations that I may think that I believe that is going to make you improve your speeches in the future. The first one is to improve your physical posture because you were like crossed hands all the time. So that made me feel like you were feeling uncomfortable. So, I don't know. And the second is about the speed when you talk, but because sometimes you speak so fast. And I got lost, when you were talking about the tomato juice. And I was like, what about the tomato juice? Because you are so fast, and I was like, Yeah, so maybe try to improve that. But even without this, in your speech today, Faisal's strongest point was the educative impact of the topic. And Sainte-Marie, here is a speech that made me think about more deeply in the nutritional facts of the airplane food. It could have been improved by changing the position of your hands and use more gestures on your body to interact more dynamically. But it works because you communicate clearly about the serostomia and the effect produced in the taste when you consume the food in the air. And I was impressed for all the repercussions from this physical phenomenon and also how it affected by environmental factors. And your speech had a concise opening, body, and closing, and for sure some tips to consider in our next trip. So good job.
Thank you.
Great job.